The following is a paid presentation from TriVita. Welcome to Straight Talk with your host and wellness advocate, Andi Barness. With 25 years in broadcasting, Andi Barness is one of America's premier lifestyle television and radio hosts. With her background as a reporter and successful morning TV talk show host, Andi is a passionate consumer advocate and is dedicated to sharing valuable health tips and wellness information that will help make a real difference in the lives of her viewers.
Hi, I'm Andi Barness, and welcome to Straight Talk, your wellness advocate talk show that addresses real-life health issues in today's ever-changing medical world. Issues that could be robbing you of the quality of life you deserve. Over the next few minutes, we will reveal an important consumer health alert and how you can receive a free special report that finally exposes the real truth about vitamin deficiencies. Joining us today is Dr. Scott Conard, a renowned medical doctor licensed in 22 states that has practiced medicine for over 27 years. He is the author of 5 insightful books on wellness, including The 7 Healers, Weight Loss the Jabez Way, and The 7 Numbers. Dr. Conard is currently the Chief Medical Officer and President of TriVita's Licensed Medical Wellness Center in Scottsdale, Arizona. Dr. Conard, welcome to the program and congratulations on your success.
I'm very excited to be here, Andi. Thank you.
Dr. Conard, I am really into wellness and I have personally embraced healthy lifestyle choices for many years. However, recently I was having some health issues and I could not figure out what was wrong with me. So I had a full panel of blood work done through my doctor and it showed that I was extremely deficient. And when I say extremely, I mean, I think it was the lowest numbers that he had ever seen. I mean, extremely vitamin B12 deficient. In fact, my levels barely registered. But the good news is that my levels have gone up for sure since I've started taking vitamin B12 supplements. I feel like a whole new person. Dr. Conard, how is this possible that even with a healthy diet and daily exercise, I was taking care of myself? How could I be vitamin deficient and not even know it?
It's important to realize that we get the vitamins and minerals that our bodies need to function out of the food that we eat. So the body can't make them. And it's really important that people start to pay attention to how they're feeling and thinking not, I'm sick or I have an illness or disease I need to go fix, but what could I be short of that would be making a difference? Because the food that we eat today, the way that we eat food today is so different than it was for our parents or grandparents or their grandparents that we have to start to think about nutritional deficiencies much more commonly.
So I think even eating healthy food, why would you think that you were even deficient if you're eating the proper fruits and vegetables?
Well, I think we have to look at the whole food process.
Okay.
Like if you look at the food that we go buy today, there are several things. You know, my son Nick, he's going to college, he's a senior, and he's majoring in environmental sciences, taking sustainable agriculture courses, and he's been sharing with me a lot about when we have food sitting in front of us, it's really unique how it gets there. Now, a couple things. One side of it is that the soil that we have in the United States today is very different. It's much more depleted. And so you can grow a beautiful looking plant or, whether it's wheat or soy or corn, whatever, and it looks the same, but the nutrients, the micronutrients, the vitamins and minerals are not nearly as high as they were for our parents and grandparents when they bought the same looking food from the grocery store. The other thing is that so much of the food that we get today is shipped here or brought here from other parts of the world, and to do that, they have to harvest it very early, and when they harvest it, they have to pick it before it's got the micronutrients in it so that when it lands in the grocery store, it looks ripe. Yeah, but if that had been grown around the corner, it could have stayed on the vine, and as it ripened, it would have gotten more of the nutritional components to it that would have made a big difference.
I think we just don't even think that. We just assume that it's planted and picked right in our backyard, or at least that's what we want to believe, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I'm a big fan of that, but it's not what we get at most grocery stores.
Right, it's not realistic.
There's more than just carbohydrates and fats and proteins in foods. There are all those micro or small nutrients and minerals that make a big difference, and in fact, it's what you're deficient in. And vitamin B12 is really one of the most important ones for us to focus on. And we're going to talk a lot about why as we go on today, but it's very important to look at the one that's the most difficult for your body to absorb and to get into your bloodstream the way it needs it to, and that's vitamin B12.
So I always thought the word fortified, I've heard the word fortified fortified with vitamins and minerals, we think, oh, that's fantastic. That's what we need.
Right. Well, fortified, actually, to me, when I see it, it means a couple of different things. One thing that's very important is sometimes when we process food, we actually take the vitamins and minerals, the micronutrients out, and then they've got to put them back in to try to have the food be more nutritious. That's not a good thing. You know, sometimes you get milk that's fortified with vitamin D. Well, vitamin D is just hard to find in the food that we take, so that's a little bit different, and there can be a good aspect. There's no way that we as scientists or we as doctors can figure out all the things that nature actually had in there. And so at the end of the day, fortified foods, when it comes to refortifying what's been taken out, are never as good as the foods that nature had made in the first place.
Dr. Conard, in the news recently, we've heard that vitamins and supplements, they're not effective. What do you have to say about that?
Well, I find it really challenging to a global statement like that, because I think that there are instances where you get poor quality supplements. They don't do any good. You get somebody who has a perfect diet and a perfect nutrition track, like maybe a 20-year-old, and they don't need to be on a bunch of supplements. And I know right now my son's a big weightlifter, and he goes and does all these supplements, and I kind of look at it and go, I really don't think it's making a big difference, but hey, it's not going to hurt him. So I think that there are specific instances where you can make a comment in a 25-year-old person who's perfectly healthy, taking a bunch of water-soluble supplements isn't going to make a big deal in their life. True. But the other thing is that I've checked blood before. I've had people take supplements like slow dissolve B12. I've checked the blood work after work. They were exhausted. They couldn't focus. They couldn't sleep well. They didn't feel good. They felt great. Their blood level's normal. I don't know how to respond to a statement like that when it's there. It's real. It's right in front of me.
Interesting information. I wonder, I don't think I'm the only one that didn't know that. I think you just read things and you get used to seeing it and you think that it's a good thing. Great information. Thank you so much, Dr. Conard. If you are just joining us, our special guest today is Dr. Scott Conard, a well-respected medical doctor licensed in 22 states and author of 5 books. And we're discussing vitamin B12 deficiencies and what you can do about it. For today's program, TriVita is offering a free special report on vitamin deficiencies, a 30-day supply of Dr. Libby's Super B12 Slow Dissolve Fast Acting Formula for only $22.99. And you get an additional box of Super B12 free. Plus, if you call now, you will also receive a $25 TriVita gift card with your order that can be used anytime in the future. That's a $71 value for only $22.99 plus shipping. Feel how good your life can be. Just give our friends at TriVita a call for details or visit getsuperb12.com. That's a free special report, 2 full boxes of Dr. Libby's Super B12 formula, plus a $25 TriVita gift card, all for just $22.99 for a savings of 68%. Just call the number below or visit getsuperb12.com for details. Super B12 comes in a tasty berry flavor, slow dissolving tablet, and is made with 3,000 micrograms of B12 to help support your body's natural energy and metabolism. It also contains folic acid, which is vitamin B9, vitamin B6, and ginseng to help support your body's stamina. And remember, vitamin B12 is more than just for energy. Numerous studies show B vitamins may help support brain, bone, nerve, heart, and even sleep health. So call the number below now or visit getsuperb12.com to see if Dr. Libby's Super B12 Slow Dissolve Fast Acting Formula is right for you. Dr. Conard, let me ask you this. When your patients ask you, how do vitamins and minerals work, what do you tell them so that they can really understand the importance of how vitamins and minerals are optimal to their health?
It's interesting because remember, we talked about macronutrients and micronutrients. Macronutrients are the big ones: carbohydrates, fats, and protein. Okay. They're the ones you hear about when you talk about diets and what kind of diet you should be on. But it's important to realize that the micronutrients and minerals are just as important. In fact, you know, it's funny, I was going to the airport yesterday to fly here. My dad he's a car collector. He has beautiful cars. We were driving this beautiful car and the radiator hose pops off. Now, water in an engine, you don't need a whole lot of it,
right,
and you don't have to replace it all the time, but without it, nothing runs well.
Right.
As opposed to gas and oxygen, which, you know, you use a lot of it up.
You think of that main stuff.
That's right. So this is something you need a little bit of, but without which everything stops.
Okay.
That's what a vitamin and a mineral deficiency does in the body. And B12 is important because it does very important things inside the
Yeah, tell me
human
what
body.
it does inside the body.
Okay, so B12 is involved in energy metabolism. So one of the things that I always listen for in my patients is if they feel like they don't have as much energy as they did before. Often they say, I'm aging. Then
Right.
I think, oh, this could be a B12 deficiency. We need to look into it. The other thing that we know it does is it works in the central nervous system. So anything that has to do with thinking clearly, sleeping at night, being alert, having the level of excitement with life that you did before, we know it's important. We know that the tissues that turn over quickly, which are like the skin cells or the gut cells, they need that energy, that process really well. And so you and I talked about with what you've experienced, that you actually had some skin things or hair things that you
Right.
experienced. So that's another example of what we talk about. And of course, our blood is turned over. We make new blood cells all the time, and B12 is central to the blood production in our body. So all that happens if you're B12 deficient is you get tired, you don't sleep well, you feel run down, and you can't exercise and do the things you used to do. And it's not all of a sudden, it kind of grays out over time and then things don't go well. It's that small nutrient that's necessary for proper functioning slowly running down.
It's almost like you think that you're getting older and you just have to feel like that because this is what it's like to get older.
And I rail against that in my practice. I absolutely believe that we are meant to live long, vital lives. And I have people that are 90 years old that are just as alive and in love with life as people who are 40 years old. So I don't buy the, as you get older, things get worse.
So why are we seeing, I mean, normally I would think that if you're in the older generation, you know, the 50s, 60s, 70s, those are the people typically, or maybe that used to be vitamin B12 deficient.
Yep.
But now it just seems like, I mean,
That's
I'm in my
exactly right.
40s and I have friends that are in their early 40s.
Yeah, you had a blood level of 100. of
Exactly.
B12. Oh my gosh, how
So
could
why?
that happen?
Why is it all of a sudden or?
Yeah, you know, and my practice has changed, right? So 3 decades of seeing patients, and in the last century, it was 60, 70, or 80-year-olds.
Right.
Now I'm seeing a lot of 40, 50-year-olds that are having B12 deficiency. And the question is why? And I think that there are several things that are different. One is that we used to, back in the last century, we didn't have a lot to fix acid indigestion with stress. What do you take, or what would a person take when they get too much acid?
And acid.
Exactly. And that's all we had. But then when I was in medical school, we started to see things around H2 blockers, which are certain products that decrease your acid, and they're better. But then we got PPIs. And PPIs are a class of medicine that people take today that knock acid production out, which is great to decrease, say, reflux or to prevent ulcers. But it's terrible when it comes to the absorption of vitamin B12. And what we know now is that B12 has to have that acid environment with what we call intrinsic factor. So B12 is extrinsic factor.
Okay.
And then you have intrinsic factor, which binds to that in an acidic environment, and then that goes down and it's absorbed through the small intestine. Well, there are a lot of people in America today that are neutralizing their stomach acid because of all the stress and the fast lifestyle.
And that's an easy fix too.
It's an easy fix. And well, we've got a solution for how you can do that, which is take the B12 a different way. You don't have to get a shot, you can get it a different way. And that brings us to Dr. Libby, who really is a person who changed my whole perspective around B12.
Yeah, tell me
and how
about
B12
Dr.
works.
Libby. Obviously B12, Super B12 is named after him. What was so special about him?
So I mentioned earlier that in my practice I had people coming in saying, give me my shot.
Right.
Well, there's a lot of inconvenience with that, right? Coming into the doctor's office, sitting and waiting, you're exposed to a bunch of sick people, then you get your shot, then you go home. And so he and I were in the 80s, sitting and talking one day, and he was like, well, I had the same problem because I was dealing with a population of people that didn't do well with needles. They were actually involved in drugs
likes
and
needles,
alcohol.
really?
Well, but these were people who had addictions.
Okay.
And he
Oh,
was,
I see what you're, okay.
And you know, the thing that's neat about him is he was not only a research scientist and got rewards for that, he actually took care of people. And this group of people had addiction problems, and so giving them a bunch of needles and saying get shots or having them come in for shots, not a good idea. So he had to figure out a different way to get B12 to people that was safe and effective. So he discovered that you could put it in a tablet and dissolve it, slow dissolve it. It was such an important change, such an important discovery that the United States government actually gave him a patent for this unique process. So it's such a blessing to have met Dr. Libby back in the 80s, and it's interesting how it affected my practice. I really took this to heart, realized my education was incomplete, and I've studied this area for the last over 25 years. Last week in my practice, I was getting ready to walk out of my office, and one of my patients, Nick, came in and he's like, "Scott, wait, I've got to get my slow dissolve tablets, my B12. I noticed I've been running down. I didn't take it for the last month or two. I'm so glad I caught you." And so even today, here we are, over 25 years later, Dr. Libby is present and alive in my practice. People have tried sprays and all sorts of other things. They don't work as well as his slow dissolve tablets that you just put under the tongue, let dissolve. So, I still carry them in my practice, and people still use them so much so that they race over to the office when they get off work to make sure that they get it.
If you are just joining us, our special guest today is Dr. Scott Conard, a well-respected medical doctor licensed in 22 states and author of 5 books. And we're discussing vitamin B12 deficiencies and what you can do about it. For today's program, TriVita is offering a free special report on vitamin deficiencies, a 30-day supply of Dr. Libby's Super B12 Slow Dissolve Fast Acting Formula for only $22.99. And you get an additional box of Super B12 free. Plus, if you call now, you will also receive a $25 TriVita gift card with your order that can be used anytime in the future. That's a $71 value for only $22.99 plus shipping. Feel how good your life can be. Just give our friends at TriVita a call for details or visit getsuperb12.com. That's a free special report, 2 full boxes of Dr. Libby's Super B12 formula, plus a $25 TriVita gift card, all for just $22.99 for a savings of 68%. Just call the number below or visit getsuperb12.com for details. Super B12 comes in a tasty berry flavor, slow dissolving tablet, and is made with 3,000 micrograms of B12 to help support your body's natural energy and metabolism. It also contains folic acid, which is vitamin B9, vitamin B6, and ginseng to help support your body's stamina. And remember, vitamin B12 is more than just for energy. Numerous studies show B vitamins may help support brain, bone, nerve, heart, and even sleep health. So call the number below now or visit getsuperb12.com to see if Dr. Libby's Super B12 Slow Dissolve Fast Acting Formula is right for you. Dr. Conard, tell us about the primary benefits of vitamin B12.
Andi, vitamin B12 has many different functions inside the human body. So first of all, we've all heard about energy and how it's important for us to have the right amount of B12 and functional B12 to have the energy and the mental clarity that we'd like to have. It's important to know too that when inside our bones, we make red blood cells, and that's what carries the oxygen through our blood. If we don't have B12, we can't do that well. I also had a patient the other day, and I don't think many people think about this. She was having tingling in her legs and her feet, and she was wondering what was going on. Well, she had a B12 deficiency, and the nerves were being affected. So by replenishing her B12, that problem resolved. The other thing that some people, when they don't have enough B12, they'll have problems with their sleep, and they can really have disturbed sleep. So we know sleep's related to it. And finally, the amount of energy that we have, the way that we feel enlivened and full of vim and vigor, or we're feeling kind of run down, and often over years we'll be feeling less vital, that too can be related to the amount of B12 that you have in your central nervous system or your brain.
So why can't someone who is vitamin B12 deficient, when they go to the doctor, they finally figure it out, they realize that they are deficient, why can't they just eat more nutrient-dense foods that contain those high levels of vitamin B12?
Well, there are 2 things you have to think about with that. First of all, is why are they B12 deficient in the first place? And B12 is very complex in terms of how it's absorbed. But the other thing is they theoretically could. Now, let me ask you a question, Andi.
Okay.
How much do you like clams, oysters, sardines? Where are we at with that?
I like none of them.
None of those, okay. So we're going to have you eat a bunch of meat and some poultry to get your B12 because B12 is in meats.
Okay.
Now, The thing is that, remember we talked about micronutrients, small amounts, and macronutrients. Well, to eat enough of the meat and poultry and seafood and clams and oysters, you'd have to get enough in, you would be eating a lot.
Okay.
And then you've got all the problems with the macronutrients, right? Lots of protein.
Right.
And some
I'd
fat.
have too much protein
Right.
or too
You
many
could,
carbohydrates.
theoretically. So
Okay.
it's so much simpler to supplement with effective supplements when it comes to B12.
Okay. So I know that you've talked about absorption and you hear a lot about stress. So what are some of the other factors that can affect the vitamin B12 absorption?
Well, it's crazy the way that B12 is absorbed in the body. And I guess to answer your question, let's go through it.
Okay.
So you eat, let's say, some oysters or some poultry, your favorite.
If I have to,
right?
okay.
Okay. And there's a small amount of B12 in it, so it goes inside your stomach. Now, that's the extrinsic factor, is kind of what we call the B12 that's in the food.
Okay.
And then your stomach, some cells in your stomach, make a little piece called the intrinsic factor.
Okay.
Those two have to get together and dance.
Okay.
And it has to be in an acidic environment. And then it floats down into your small intestine where it's pulled into the distant portion of your small intestine where it goes in your blood, and now it can finally operate. So it's very complex. It's the only vitamin that has all that complexity. Most vitamins, you take them, you swallow them, they go into your body.
Right.
Boom. But B12 is very complex. And so if you don't have enough stomach acid, if you have any decrease in the absorption or the function of the cells of the stomach to make the intrinsic factor, or if there's anything going on in your small intestine, which, by the way, I think that's where you had a challenge that
Right.
you still, we still got to think about with
Right.
you, and it's not being absorbed properly. That's why you have such a challenge getting
It sounds
enough.
like it has to almost be just like everything has to be perfect.
It does. And as we age, we know that perfection
gonna
goes down a
happen.
little bit. And we also know that when you take things to neutralize stomach acid, it can play a big effect.
Right. So we know the B12 is on the generally recognized as safe list by the U.S. government, but can someone actually take too much B12?
No. And here's why. You have two different kinds or sets of vitamins. Fat soluble, they can become toxic and build up. That's A, D, E, and K. And then you have water soluble, where your body takes it in, uses what it wants to, and the rest of it goes out the other sides.
Okay.
B12 is a water soluble vitamin. And so you don't have to worry about toxicity at all.
Let's talk about multivitamins, because I know that most people, including myself, would think I could just take a multivitamin and that will help with everything I'm deficient on. Can't we just do that?
Well, I mean, sounds logical, doesn't it?
Right.
Yeah. In my practice, I've gone back and forth on that. A usual, regular, over-the-counter multivitamin, there's two problems with it for me. One is that people take that and then they think it can eat terribly, and it's all going to be okay. And that doesn't work that
Right.
way. You really do need to eat the whole grain, close to the earth, natural foods. And then secondly is that when you're B12 deficient, you need good doses of B12, like 3,000 micrograms. And what a multivitamin has is literally 20% or less of that. Plus, you want to make sure it's absorbed to the B6 and the folate, and the three of them work together on that energy cycle we talked about. So I believe in focusing on when you have a deficiency, or you may have a deficiency because you're tired or you're not focusing well, you're not sleeping well, all the things we talked about. Let's focus on the problem and let's correct it. A multivitamin is not going to do that.
And it's definitely not focusing on our B12 deficiency.
Not at all. So getting the right dose the right way so that you actually put it under the tongue, you dissolve it, and we know from the research that's been done that you do get a very healthy amount of it in your body so that you start to solve the problems that we see people having more often these days.
Dr. Connard, Dr. Libby's Super B12, it has more in it, and there are a lot more benefits than just the B12. Let's talk about that.
So it's interesting. Right now, you have people who want energy, and they're going out and they're buying products that have high doses of caffeine, they have high doses of sugar, and they have B12. And people are kind of focused on, well, it's got B12, it must be healthy and natural. That is not the case. Those are some they take you on roller coaster rides. They have all sorts of other effects in your body. The thing I like about the Super B12 is that it has B12, B9, B6, and it has ginseng. Very safe, very natural. It's not going to take you on a roller coaster ride. It's going to naturally support your energy production systems of your body. And as a result, you're going to get the energy without the negatives of getting a lot of energy
highs
and
and the
crashing.
lows.
Exactly, which is, I really strongly am worried about the effect of some of those other products on our bodies.
So it's the combination of the other B12 vitamins and the ginseng.
Well, exactly. It's what it has in it, which are the vitamins and ginseng, which is for stamina, and it's what it doesn't have in it, which is all the sugar and caffeine and other less healthy, less beneficial products that can actually harm people with their blood sugar and other things going up and down over time. So it's wonderful for energy, and it's wonderful in that it doesn't cause other problems that other products that I see patients taking today will be encountering.
If you're feeling slow, if you're feeling sluggish, if you're not as, you don't feel like your brain is as sharp as it used to be, you can try this. And it's not going to hurt.
That's just what I said to my patients all the time. Try it for 30 days. It's either going to make a difference or it's not going to make a difference.
Right, but it's not going to hurt.
It's not going to hurt you at all. And if it makes the difference, which it did in a lot of people, then all of a sudden you realize that I'm much healthier than I was before. I was deficient. And the worst thing that can happen to me is someone goes in, they have the list of all the symptoms, and they get thrown on a drug, which helps with some of them, but doesn't fix the problem.
Right.
And now they're on an expensive medication or a medication that could cause harm. So fix the problem and then see what you're left with that you need to go get help with.
Thank you, Dr. Connard. Fascinating information. If you are just joining us, our special guest today is Dr. Scott Connard, a well-respected medical doctor licensed in 22 states and author of 5 books. And we're discussing vitamin B12 deficiencies and what you can do about it. For today's program, TriVita is offering a free special report on vitamin deficiencies, a 30-day supply of Dr. Libby's Super B12 Slow Dissolve Fast Acting Formula for only $22.99. And you get an additional box of Super B12 free. Plus, if you call now, you will also receive a $25 TriVita gift card with your order that can be used anytime in the future. That's a $71 value for only $22.99 plus shipping. Feel how good your life can be. Just give our friends at TriVita a call for details or visit getsuperb12.com. That's a free special report, 2 full boxes of Dr. Libby's Super B12 formula, plus a $25 TriVita gift card, all for just $22.99 for a savings of 68%. Just call the number below or visit getsuperb12.com for details. Super B12 comes in a tasty berry flavor, slow dissolving tablet, and is made with 3,000 micrograms of B12 to help support your body's natural energy and metabolism. It also contains folic acid, which is vitamin B9, vitamin B6, and ginseng to help support your body's stamina. And remember, vitamin B12 is more than just for energy. Numerous studies show B vitamins may help support brain, bone, nerve, heart, and even sleep health. So call the number below now or visit getsuperb12.com to see if Dr. Libby's Super B12 Slow Dissolve Fast Acting Formula is right for you. Well, Dr. Connard, thank you so much for sharing such impactful information with our viewers today. On behalf of Dr. Scott Connard and our friends at TriVita, I'm Andi Barness, wishing you all the best of health and wellness.
The preceding was a paid presentation from TriVita.